Hey, everybody, welcome back to JRB Live. I have tonight, again, my buddies Ray and Wade, and we are talking about this amazing book I just read. It is a gift from God to me, and it will be, look, yes, 3 times, Climbing the Mountain, the heart of budgeting. So I know budgeting is a bad word, okay? And I hate it more than anyone. I have hated it more than anyone my whole life, like my whole adult life. But it was like just in these past 9 months, it was like God was saying, you have to learn to do this. You have to learn to do this. And so I've just been praying, help me to know how to be responsible with money, but be generous. At the time that I was praying that, it was just like mind-blowing to me, and it is a mind-blowing thing. But thankfully, Wade wrote this book, and it really was just the perfect time, and it's so straightforward and simple and surprisingly loving, you know and I'm so excited to talk about it. This is going to be a 3-part series, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. That was a long
Thank you.
intro.
Thank you for having us.
We are delighted to be here again. Thank you.
No problem. It really was just
Proverbial
such
third
a
wheel.
blessing. We were on there. We were on right before they came on last time. We were all in the messenger, Facebook Messenger, and we were going on about how we were going to be on the show. Talking about their new podcast, which is amazing, by the way. Farewell, My King.
The Cult of Me.
The Cult of Me. It's so good. And that's what they were talking about last time. But Ray mentioned the budgeting book. And just with what I've been praying about and just been going through, I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the book. And I'm so glad I did. It was just such a blessing. And it makes budgeting so easy to see and visualize. And you even get excited about it, which is very strange.
Well, it's not as strange as you think. I mean, I look forward to the end of every month when I can close it out, and I've got like an 8 to 10 page monthly budget with all transactions. Everything is integrated. So the way I describe it in the book is this is my way of acknowledging and thanking Jesus for the provision He's given me, and I picture sliding it across the table. Okay, Lord, this is what I did with what you gave me. I hope it's pleasing to you. And if not, then, show me how I can, be a better steward of it. So there's a whole lot to unpack with it, going back to the very beginning. And, when you're ready, I'll start sharing some of that and how Ray was a catalyst in the whole thing.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Before we get started, and Wade's going to give you some details about what this book's really about, but there's 2 things that's got to happen. Number one, you got to hit rock bottom. Okay. You got to hit rock bottom before you can ever do anything. And then you got to ask for something else. You got to ask for a miracle. And there's 2 things I want everyone to listen to, because with Farewell, My King, I'm usually the babbling idiot that starts this to get Wade warmed up. I'm the pregame before the Super Bowl here. I think a lot of times people decide that money is absent of any kind of faith principles, and we read the Bible, and even sometimes the four-wall church might have a perspective. That's denominational wise. You can get all kinds of crazy stuff up and down the path with money. I remember Wade just came out, and I'm going to let him say this story of how this book came, but I want everyone to know my personal steps into this. I was the antagonist that didn't want Wade to write books quickly. I wanted him to be slow, and I wanted him to be thorough, and I wanted him to give me some time to market these books after he got through writing them. And here I come in to sit down with him for a lunch, and it'd been less than just a month or less, and I'm saying, Wade, you've got to write a budgeting book.
Yeah.
And Wade, I'm going to hand it off to you, but before I do, this is not a how-to book. This is before the how-to. This is where your heart, your mind, your soul needs to be willing to receive, and then willing to say, "Hey, look, I'm rock bottom here. I'm not being a good steward of my money here, and I need to go find a place where, I mean, it doesn't matter if you've got $250,000 in your bank or a quarter, you're still called to be very, very, very faithful with that money, and that faithfulness is what Wade is going to talk about. So, in faith, I stepped out and stepped into a booth at Sonny's, and I asked a question of my book writing, sword wizard, pen slinging friend, and
yes,
tell us what you heard from me, and then what you did after that.
So. Okay, well, great. Little history is that I have been a big fan of Dave Ramsey back in the day when I first started traveling for my job. Went on the road, and is one of those. This is when they had cassette tapes. You get books on cassette, and get a bunch of them for like $1, and then you got to buy them out. And I had a couple of his books back in the late '90s, and so. Then later on, it was books on CD and all that. So, over the years, I've learned how to handle money because I've had my butt kicked by it, and so that's really one of the things I want to share before we kind of dig into the details is we're all born with a pagan mindset towards money. We are born at odds with our wallets. And it is a learned talent. And some of the finest and best and smartest people that you'll ever meet in your life, we're all in the same boat. And what's interesting is when we start sharing these things, we find out that we are all in the same boat. Yeah. And we'll dig into that more later when we talk about like the budgeting workshop that we do and that kind of thing and what our plans are for that. So I just finished my 6th novel. It was 2017, August. And I was meeting Ray before heading out of town to go over to Birmingham for a business trip. And, Ray is, he's a man's man. He was in the Marine Corps and, did a bunch of Marine stuff. And, he's sitting down there, he's almost sweating. And he's like, look, he knows at our church that we had been, I had been facilitating. It's not a Dave Ramsey. It's a similar one called I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. And there's 6 modules to it. And I had facilitated 3 or 4 classes at the church. And it was really, pretty good. And Ray, after him and some friends had attended one of them, he just started asking some questions in that. And so we sat down, and he's the one always slowing me down. Wade, you're, cranking these books out too fast, and take your time. And like he was talking about, but, so we're sitting there, and he says, I hate to tell you this, because I was editing my 6th novel and, getting ready to publish it in the fall. And this is like August, right at, 6 years ago. So long story short, he said, look, you got to write this budgeting book because there's something there. What he didn't know is that earlier in that summer, another one of my clients who's got her own ministry, she and I had been talking about it, and God had already started to prepare me for it. So, this was Climbing the Mountain, The Heart of Budgeting was my 7th book, but God had prepared me. So what ended up happening was I left my trip after our lunch, and I received his call, Ray's call, pretty well. 24 hours later, I had the name of the book and the concept. 48 hours later, I had all the chapters, laid out. I did add one more chapter after that, but I basically had the flow of it. So it was like God had prepared me. He brought Ray in as a catalyst because iron's supposed to sharpen iron. And then I just started cranking away, and it took me about 45 days to write. But I didn't publish it until the following spring because this was my first non-novel. And as you know, when you're, writing in the third person, you get into a certain groove with that. And all of a sudden I'm writing a first person, and that's different. So I added, about 15 to 20% more of the words. I really smoothed it out and, published it in the spring of 2018. The following year ended up creating a presentation. We have a PowerPoint presentation where I do a presentation / sermon for about an hour, and then take a break. And then there's a Q&A after that, and there's a workbook for it and all that. So it's just there's a whole lot to it as we unpack. So I'm going to stop here for a moment, but I thought it was important to just mention that this is a big picture look. And that's really with Ray and I and our ministry efforts together, everything gets to the big picture first so that you can understand. Because if you dig into the minutia of climbing financial ladders and all of that stuff, you know, the blocking and tackling in football, that's how you win football games. It's not the 80-yard bombs or triple reverses and all that. If you're blocking and tackling better than the other team, then you're going to win. And budgeting is your blocking and tackling. And I found that in the course we had been facilitating, the third module was about budgeting. And after doing the class a few times, it just was like, if someone doesn't get the budgeting part of this right, you can just throw out the rest of it.
Sure.
Because it's the accounting, it's the debits and credits, and it's the acknowledgement of where you are, whether it's good news or bad news.
Yeah.
And that's the other big picture thing I wanted to share right here is there's two major fallacies when it comes to handling money, I believe. Number one is you're so poor that you don't need to account for your money.
Yeah.
And number two is you're so rich that you don't need to account for your money. Because let me tell you, the way we handle our money is an absolute, it's like a telescope right into our heart so God can see exactly where we're at. And like I said, we're born with this pagan mentality where we want to put all of our hope in money, which is going to go away the day we die. You know, so we want to be good stewards, but this isn't about what we give or whatever. This is about accounting for everything that God gives us, not because we want to find 6 cents that the bank got wrong on my bank statement. That's not it. This is, are you willing to show your Heavenly Father how much you're grateful for what He's given you? Because I promise you, I mean, you know, people die suddenly of aneurysms and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
If you got breath in your lungs, He's provided opportunities. Yes, we do our part. We get a job, we work, we do all these things, but none of it's possible without the creator of the universe laying out a path for us. We can't do anything apart from Him, even though we think we can, because it's the cult of me. We're God of our own world. Yeah. So that's really how it came about, and it flowed very smoothly. And it's so a great passion for my life. But this is something that Ray is a huge believer in, and we are trying to expand our outreach with it because we're trying to help people. We're trying to help alleviate pain in people's life. Now, I'm going to stop back over to Ray, you know, for a minute, but we're trying to help alleviate people's pain so that they aren't going to be afraid of what is in that budget or be overly comforted by what's in their budget.
Sure. Yeah. And before Ray speaks, I will just say one thing that, you know, you guys both told me, you know, this is not a how-to book, but this is about the heart. But, you know, reading it for me, it really was a how-to book because I thought of it, well, like how you guys, or Wade says the wild stallion, you know, like we're all the wild stallion before the way we treat money before you're, you know, you take hold of your budget, you know, the budget, climbing the mountain with the budget. Okay. You're a wild stallion with your money and it's just chaos, you know, and that's how we all are. And it just made me think of like Christianity without the gospel, you know, like there's people that go to, you know what I mean? Like there's people that go to church all the time, you know, and they're doing churchy things. But if you don't have the gospel in your heart, you don't got it. You know what I mean?
That is an unbelievably good analogy. And let me tell you, you know, I like to teach theological concepts from the big picture and then get into the details. And Ray, he's straight up the guy that it doesn't matter who, if he's sitting in a room of pastors, he's going to bring up the gospel because it's refreshing. And if you're a Christian and you're offended by hearing that Jesus died for us, you know, if you're offended at the good news, then maybe you're a little more cultural than you are.
You need the good news.
Well, if you're offended by it, you don't know it.
Right. Right.
That's the big deal. So that was a very good point. And I want to make a very, very easy point is that nowhere else in life can something that is not tracked be improved.
Right. Yeah.
But we think that if we don't track our money and our spending and our income and our outgo, that it's somehow going to fix itself.
Sure.
I mean, tell that to a 3-year-old with a box of Oreos.
Yeah.
I think Oreos is that. We'll only eat 3. If you don't oversee that 3, it's going to be 13.
Yeah.
Because we are wild stallions, and you're never going to get rid of the stallion.
Right.
I think that's the fallacy, is that there's always going to be a shinier toy or a different place for our money to go, but we can't quantify what God does with us if we are not measuring what he's doing with us. So why wouldn't we, even if my budget's a negative every month, put that negative number down there and put your eyes to the ceiling and say, Lord,
yes,
you need to either bring someone here to buy something from me so I can get the positive numbers. You need to find the people, places, and personalities to get in my business to help me get my budget right.
Yeah.
Or I need to quit being disobedient.
Yeah.
And I need to filter through my budget with a lens of obedience. Am I being obedient? Am I running from debt like the gazelle? Hey, Dave Ramsey. I mean, I'm a Dave Ramsey graduate. This is, but everyone can fall into temptation of making bad financial decisions, just like we can fall into temptation anywhere. But we have to track it. How would you know if a miracle happened in your life? Well, because something changed.
Yes.
And you have record of the wrong, so you know the right.
Yes.
Well, if I can't look back, if I can't say, hey, go grab your budget for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And let's sit down and talk about them and objectively go over them. How can we even see the miracles that God's done with your money if we don't know what you are doing with it? I mean, this is such a 30,000 foot view of it, but I'm telling you, a piece of paper, a pen, and my known bills is exactly where you start. There is no magic. I mean, you've got all kinds of, and I suggest at the immediate to not do that on an app. I know Rocket Money will do it for you. No, I want your pen. What do you do when you read your Bible? You take notes, right?
Yeah.
You take your pen, you take notes, because that's the fastest way to get it here. When you got to write that, a red number and writing a negative number, it's two different things.
It's a good point. If you have an app, it's going to make it too easy. It's sort of like this. For years and 41 years in the trucking business, I've been traveling for a bunch of that. I would travel somewhere, and this is before GPSs and all that kind of stuff. I'd have to whip out a map if I was going somewhere, and I'd be looking at it now. Even though I'll plug my phone into it's just unbelievable. I can just plug my phone into my car, pull up the map, and it's really good. But I still, in my mind, know the grid of the map where I'm going, just in case it bugs out or whatever. And it's the same thing with your budgeting. You have to know it so well. Later on, you can use some of these, technology stuff. But right now, this is basic training. You're not learning how to do fancy stuff in basic training. They're breaking you down. And that's why the budget is so important. But here's the key. And I didn't really know this part until I kind of got into the middle of it. But there was no desire to reinvent the steps you need to climb the financial ladders, because some really brilliant people, Ramsey and others, have come up with those things. I rather think of climbing the mountain as being a prequel, that if you do this and then you go through the techniques how to do it, because let's face it, in our society, everybody wants to just address what's in our soul, which is our personality, our intellect, our experiences, empirical and otherwise. But we have a spirit that separates us from the rest of creation. That's made in the image of God. We know right and wrong. If you really want permanent change, you can't just say, well, give me these 12 things to do and I'll do it and then I'll be done. That's your soul speaking. And your soul isn't strong enough for something that is a spiritual enemy. And that's what dealing with money is. Like I said, we're born with this, at odds, with it. So instead of just giving someone some techniques, those techniques are fine. This is about addressing your spirit. And once you get it set, you can do anything. But here's the question. And I asked this in the book, in the class, the whole thing. If you're not being faithful with what God's giving you now, why would he give you more?
Yeah,
I know. I mean, you give it. God is our Father. We're not just servants. We're not slaves. He adopts us through Jesus Christ as children and heirs of the entire universe. Why would he give us more if we're doing a crappy job with what he's given us now?
Right.
So if you want more, the first thing to do is be a good accountant, be a good steward, measure this, pray, talk to him, and stop thinking about yourself, because you are not going to find hope in something as flimsy as money. Why in 1929, when the stock market crashed on Black Friday, why in the world did people start jumping off of buildings? Because money was an idol, and that was their God, and they didn't know how to see past that. But when you are set in your spirit, and that whether you're poor or rich or whatever you do, you know, I mean, let me tell you something. It would be impossible if they just had this gigantic $1.5 billion lottery somebody won, winning ticket down in Neptune Beach, Florida, Ray. Let me tell you something. If I won something like that, I would probably be broke, because I'd be giving most of it away, because you don't need that much money. You don't need that much money. My hope is never in that. My hope is in the gospel. My hope is in what's going to be the life to come after this. And I'm going to be faithful with what he's given me here now. And that's what I hope others will glean out of this book.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, yes, to what you said, because when you're broke all the time, you know, you think all I need is a lot of money. I just need tons of money, because then it doesn't matter if I'm bad with money, because I just have tons of money. But you'll be bad with that too. And then you'll still be broke all the time.
And rich people often are. Rich people are some of the poorest people on the planet, because there's never enough. It doesn't matter.
I love biographies, you know, and I've watched so many celebrities that are broke now, you know, and like they're doing the biography to get money because they're broke. And it really is that wild stallion that you have to tame. And I love the way you wrote it, you know, I mean, just in the climbing of the mountain. And for you guys watching, here's the tour guide. He's called the tour guide, and chapter by chapter, he takes you up the mountain of the heart of budgeting. And budgeting, there really does need to be a whole book on it, because it really is the point, you know? I mean, you can't do any Dave Ramsey or anything like that, which for me, I told you, Wade, on Sunday that, you know, where I'm at, I'm not thinking about like Dave Ramsey and anything like that. That's just way too overwhelming for me, you know? And there's so many people like me that it's like they just need to face the music and, you know, just get the heart of it. You know what I mean? And budgeting
Take baby steps.
Start forward. A huge step. That's such a huge step. Like to get the budget, you know, to face the music, to just start moving forward. That's a huge step.
And that's a big reason why he works off the accountant. The accountant. I'm going to talk about the accountant a lot, because the accountant is the reason why the budget works. It's not your fault. It's not your spouse's fault. It's not the dog's fault. It is the accountant making decisions. Yeah. And that is what matters. That's it.
The accountant is a fictitious thing that my wife and I would do, and it'd be like if we overspent on something, you know, I'd be saying, well, the accountant's going to be upset with us. Well, I happen to be the accountant in our family, but you have to take this function and push it outside of your marriage, above where you both can see this fictitious character called the accountant, so that somebody doesn't play bad guy. You know, because typically, you know, in a marriage, you're going to have a spender and a saver. Some reason they always seem to be attracted to one another that way. But, you know, you can't let the person who is bringing the bad news, because all it is just debits and credits. Okay, well, here's our situation. We spent all our grocery money, and we need some milk and bread, so we got to have to pull it from somewhere else. Sure. That's not the accountant's fault that that's happened, but it's really our fault for what we spent earlier in the month. Or sometimes you just, you know, inflation's gone up, and so the expenses gone. But you cannot make your spouse the bad guy. or the bad gal in this. And too often that happens, and it's just not fair. It's just wrong. So just take this accountant and project it outward. It may seem silly, but I think it works. It's worked in my own budget. I think it's worked for Ray. I mean, just, you don't need a bad guy. You need to just look, this is the debits and credits, man. This is black and white. There is no gray here. Here's what it looks like, whether it's pretty or ugly or anywhere in between. Here's what it looks like. And when you do that, you stop vilifying the accountant and whoever's doing the debits and credits. Because again, I keep saying that, but it's just so simple. Yeah. And once you do it, I'm telling you, you're going to feel so much better when you start quantifying. And just like Ray was saying earlier, at the very minimum, I mean, when we first moved to Georgia in 2001, before my wife got a job, our budget looked like it was like minus $450 a month. We had to use credit cards to buy groceries.
Sure.
And then she got a job, and then we got that, and then paid it all off. But I mean, it can be ugly, but at the very minimum, if you're negative 450 in the month, you know what you got to pray about.
You know what you got to pray about.
If you don't know, it's like, Lord, send me some help.
Yeah.
If I were guys, help me what? What do you need help with?
And usually that send me more money.
Yeah.
Right.
Send me more wisdom on how I'm using my money.
Yes.
Or send me $450.82 because that's what I'm negative this month. Yeah. If I were God, I'd say, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to speak for God. I'm just saying, put yourself in his shoes. Because let me ask you this. How often do we want to reward disobedient children? Zero
times.
God's our Father. We're his children. This is his kingdom. We get to be heirs, but he doesn't want lousy heirs. He wants good heirs. Yeah. He wants proper stewards who are really, stewardship is really under what I think our family business is, being a shepherd. You can't say, okay, well, I've got 100 sheep out in the field. Well, I'm not going to count them today. Well, I got 90. Okay, the wolves took some. Yeah, that's not what a shepherd does. A shepherd has some accounting baked in, and that's what God made us to be. Jesus is a good shepherd, and I hear some sheep in the background barking.
That's a big doggy.
Yes.
That's a big doggy.
But you see what I'm saying? It's the people who read this book, they don't want to read it, but I'm telling you, it's refreshing. And to me, it should be relieving because it's a big picture. It flows pretty smoothly. And I do got to say this because, I've given away more books than I've sold. I hope that'll change one day, but if it doesn't, that's fine. But, this book was entered into the National Writer's Digest self-published book writing contest a few years ago, and it got a perfect score. And it didn't win, but it got a perfect score. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
When God gives us something to do and we follow and obediently in his steps, then it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And, that's what happened here because there was, more than just my hand in it. I mean, I'm quarterbacking the team, but really this is just taking my story and using it to try to help encourage others. That's what Ray and I are trying to do. We're not trying to condemn. We're trying to get people on board so that you can be a happier person in dealing with these things.
Oh man. And it does not, we're talking about it, and you have to read it. You have to read the book because the way you guys, my dog, something is outside, but they will stop in a minute. I'm so sorry.
Dogs are fine. I've already given the warning to everybody saying we're not in a recording studio and we've got animals. So it's good.
I know.
I'm good.
Live TV. But we're talking about it and it sounds one way, but when you read this, it's so amazing. Just the way it's climbed the mountain and the tour guide takes you. It's so the concepts, they just meet you at where you're at. Is so easy to understand. The language is just, I don't know. I told Wade on Sunday, it just feels like your dad's just sitting you down and like explaining.
Sympathetic.
Is what?
Very simple. It's sympathetic.
I thought you said pathetic. I was like,
no, sympathetic. I'm pathetic. He's sympathetic.
No, you're not.
Look, yes. Sympathetic. He comes with the Father's heart.
Yeah.
And that's the way we are supposed to step into all the parts of our life. And if you step into this with the Father's heart, you will understand that them numbers, them pluses and minuses and debits and credits are what God's given you.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes he he intentionally doesn't give you enough. I mean,
Right.
And
Yes.
what we don't understand is that have you ever seen people who just barely make it? I mean, they're always on the edge, but they're honest about it. They know what's going on, and they got this appeal to them, this love about them, because they know how blessed they are. And there's people who have multi-million-dollar banking accounts who are completely devastated.
Yeah.
And the reason why this book is in your hand, and the reason why it ever existed, is because so many of us did not have a compassionate father, mother, or mentor to sit down with us and say, hey, look, this money thing is not going away, and it's not going to get any easier. And you probably need to get your hand around it, good, bad, or indifferent. You're going to have to go sit in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and sometimes, even as adults, we're just like kids, and that we can't hear things from our parents.
Yeah, that
too. Well, that's absolutely right. Just a couple of things that when you think about it, let's look at scripturally. I don't have the verse right. It's right about the middle of Genesis 3, where the curse on mankind happens because of sin. And essentially, God is, telling Adam, the ground is cursed, and you're going to have to scratch your living from the thorns and the thistles. And to me, the being born at odds with our wallets is really pointing right at that verse. And it's something that no matter what you do, we're going to be stuck with. And I'm telling you, some of the most, well, I use this in the book, but some of the most cursed people in this world are the ones that have lots of money and never really realize how closer you can be to God once you understand what it's like to be without stuff. And that's really the irony. But I want to share this one quote, and it's funny because I used it at the end of chapter 10. And it wasn't until the next year when I wrote the presentation and the workbook that I realized that the whole key in this book gets down to a quote from good old Billy Graham. It says, if a person gets their attitude toward money straight, it will help straighten out almost every other area in their life.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Page 116.
And that is a game changer. So we're born at odds. We're born, scratching our way. But if God sometimes, like he did with Solomon, curses people with affluence.
Yeah.
And if you have too much affluence and you haven't had to struggle, it's sort of like this. When Ray was went into the Corps, if he didn't go to Paris Island to get broken down so he could be built back up, he would have been a really lousy Marine.
Oh, man.
I mean, getting up at 10 a.m. and all the enemies hitting the beach. Hey, that's okay. Y'all come on up here and have a lemonade with us. No, that's not how it works in the warfare that we're born into. Yeah. And money is the proving ground. But I'm telling you, if you're running from it, you're going to be sad most of the time. Mm-hmm. If you run to it, you are going to conquer it. You're going to feel strong. You're going to feel, even if you're broke, you're going to know you're broke. It's okay to be broke, but it's not okay to not know you're broke.
Right. That's a line in the book. Yeah.
And I have been there many times. And believe me, I have a lot of prayer time talking to my Father about it. It's like, look, Lord, I've been scratching a living in this for a long time. Yeah. I'm kind of wore out. You want to help a brother out or what? And whether he wants to bring a miracle or not, that's his business.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for it, but whatever he does, I know that I'm getting stronger and stronger every single month that I do that budget and I slide it across the table. My wife and I have total unity with it. Rarely, once in a while, we'll kind of step out of it just a little bit, but we have unity. She understands how it works. And the accountant is alive and well, but the accountant is not me and it's not her. It's us projected away from the marriage so Satan can't get in the middle of it.
It's God's word in a person working through one of the most crippling things that happens to a marriage. Because, when we boil it down to the simplest thing is that we're selfish. And we want all these things for ourselves, and we want to be in control, and we want to have the last say. Well, that's not true for the Christian. And if there's someone listening to this and they have tried over and over again to do this, and it's failed, and it just keeps. Well, the reason why is because you're not embracing the minimum steps, and the minimum steps is that I'm not going to do this to prove how good I am at budgeting. I'm going to do this because this is obedience. It's just the same way with my words, with my thoughts, with my behavior. It is a reflection of who you are as a Christian, not what makes you one. Okay, because we just don't get this. I mean, did you take a budgeting class in school? No, you didn't. Did you get told how emotional money would be in school?
No, but I also dropped out of school.
Well, I got told to drop out of school in 10th grade. I got told that, hey, Ray, you're probably better off getting a GED.
Oh,
you know, so and the thing of it is, though, is that when you grab a hold of this finally, no matter if it's good or bad, you can give it to the Lord. So like right now, it wouldn't be very difficult at all for us to sit here and, okay, I've got one of these sins that I committed today in my mind or in my mouth or, some way. And I know to give that to him because I have recollection of it. If I am being ignorant about my finances, I'm sinning. I'm sinning. I'm not being the steward that I was born to be. And that's, I won't wait to speak on how we're going to bring this live to people and how we want to do this going in the future, because the book is the book, and people need to just get the book, and then as soon as you read it, get in contact with us. But Wade, why don't you give everyone the kind of 30,000 foot view of what's next for us?
Well, I've done this budgeting workshop. Like I say, it's about a 2-hour program where I get up and do a presentation. It's on PowerPoint, and I've got a workbook that kind of flows along with it. So for the people who like to take notes, you don't have to read the book or have the workbook to go through it. But I've done a few of them, and it kind of slowed down with the pandemic, and now we're looking to kind of get things moving again. But instead of just setting up and doing it, we're going to start doing a series of Zoom meetings or whatever, where we're going to show the program, where I'm going to do the first part. I'll do the presentation, then we'll take a short break, and then there's a Q&A, because you want to have some discussion afterward. So you're not just going to get a sermon or a presentation, but you're going to have a chance to participate and listen to what others have to say. And Ray is going to, head up that part, because once I've done my talking, I want to hear other people talk. And that's kind of what Ray does in our own podcast. And so he's going to lead that. And he's got, some financial training and some things like that. So hopefully people will share. And the more people do, I'm not talking about taking out all your dirty laundry, but during the Q&A, you're going to have an opportunity to, well, I'm dealing with this. And guess what you're going to find out? Oh, well, so is Susie Q over here, and so is Joe Schmo over there. I mean, we're all dealing with the same stuff. We're all fighting that Genesis 3 curse, scratching, in the thorns and thistles, trying to make a living. It's been mankind since Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden.
That's amazing. I mean, that's not amazing, but getting kicked out of the garden is not amazing. But so you guys are going to do a Zoom call, and that's going to be like your like a workshop that people can do.
Workshop. Yep.
It will be a workshop. We're going to try to do it once a month. We're probably going to try to do the first one in September, right? I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
Yeah, September. Sometime early fall. We're going to start into it, and then work out a schedule where we're doing it. But the thing is if it's virtual, then people all over the country and because truly, a lot of the people that I'm, ministering to and encouraging and that kind of stuff, don't live near me, and like, for example, I'll be, calling on clients up in New England next week, and have some book fans. Actually have a group of ladies up there that I visited several years ago that, we're kind of like a little book club, and they were pulling out their books and all that. So they're all over the place. So somebody up in Ellsworth, Maine, or, New Hampshire or Seattle, Washington can get to be a part of this. And that's just something Ray and I've been talking about lately. So, we're going to do that. We're going to have the PowerPoint on there, and I'm going to do a lot of talking. Then we're going to have a Q&A, and hopefully people will buy the book and get into the real nitty gritty details, because the presentation is essentially a dumbed down version of the book, chapter by chapter with a few bullet points, but you're going to get the fullness of it. And I got to say, thank you for reading the book, because, Ray and I felt like there's been something special about this whole thing, but a lot of people don't want to do this. Right. It's just like, I know I need to, I'll get around to it. Yeah. And that's
how I was when you guys held the seminar at church. I was like, nope, I'll do anything else, and it was just God basically saying, like, this is your answer to prayer right here. And just reading it, it was just so obvious that it was just God answering my prayers, and
that's awesome.
I had, you guys are doing the workshop, and it's, I'm so excited to.
Now that workshop's going to be free.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Amazing.
Okay. So we're going to be doing, and the cool thing about this is that I'm probably going to record one or two of them, and where I can send it to people if I need to. But we want to do monthly workshops. They will be free for you to attend. You just got to show up there and give us your time, and that's it. And then
that's amazing.
We always want people, hopefully we can have it set up to where maybe I can back a website up to it one day. And if you want to go back and listen to one part again, we'll have access to parts of the training. And, we're not asking you to buy the workbook to do this. This is not a $35 entry fee. It's show up when we go live and participate. And you don't even have to. You don't have to participate. You can sit through it, get what you need out of it, and move forward. But this is zero cost to the end user. Besides, if after you hear us, you would like the copy of the book, then it's
$10 on Amazon. So I mean, it's
pretty expensive. I mean, that's a lot.
It's so worth it.
It's important to note that we're talking about these financial things, but we're not associated with any of these other, more extensive financial programs, the I Was Broke or any of these. We're not associated with them, but we hope that people that do take that will check this out as a way to hopefully set their heart before they go into that. But that's really up to them. It's really two separate things. And it's important to make that note again, that this is about faith. It's not just about the mechanics. The mechanics to me are fairly logical, rational, and those can be learned pretty easily, but they're not going to really sink in until you get your heart straight. And when you get your heart straight, permanent change. See, you don't want to be one of those people that'll start a budget and then 2 months later you drop the whole thing, because a lot of people have shared that they've done that. That's where you're just relying on your soul, your own power. When you get your spirit involved, where I am a son or daughter of the Most High God, and this is what he expects of me. He expects me to take care and be a shepherd, to steward what he gives me to take care of. And I don't care if you make $10,000 a year or 10 million, you're in the same boat.
Yeah.
You're in the same boat. And if you have more, obviously it's about a different scale. But again, get back to the question. If you were God and you have children who are disobeying, why would you give them more money if they're not doing this basic, simple faith thing? Yeah. I'm going to give you $1,000 a month. What are you going to do with it? And I'm telling you, if you account for it, then to me, it's almost like, okay, God, I'm going to bat this tennis ball back into your court. What's next?
Right.
You're showing you're a good son. You're acknowledging that he's your father, that he has the power. And to me, I think that's an unbelievably important concept versus just, well, God's my sugar daddy and a genie in a bottle, bring me some more money. We're dealing with the creator and savior. We're not dealing with some dude. Okay. We're dealing with God.
Yes. And, our Sunday morning Bible, my dogs are just going to bark. They're evil spirits. My dogs are evil spirits. It's unbelievable. They're just going to bark the whole time. But on Sunday mornings, our Bible studies on the Exodus, and it's just so interesting that Moses is bringing the Israelites out and then he's going to be on the mountain with God, and then here we are climbing the mountain, It just made me think of like just having it be such an answer to prayer, and then it's just a mountain, and it just makes me think of like Moses and the mountain,
The thing is Moses was disobedient and didn't get to go into the Holy Land. He was on, what is it, Mount Nebo, and he did because he was disobedient. And so when
he lived to 120, and he spent those days with God. Okay,
he did, but he was disobedient. And this is what I'm saying is we're born disobedient. We need to learn the obedience, and that being a good son or daughter, is important. And I keep hammering that home. I do it in the presentation because that's an important designation. We are part of God's family business, but we don't get to do well in the family business if we're not doing it, running the company, so to speak, how he wants us to.
Yeah. And that, when you're broke, or just irresponsible with money, you can tell yourself, I'm this way because money's not an idol to me. It's not important to me. So I just don't pay attention. And that's irresponsible, and it's not godly. That's sinning. It's sinning because we're responsible. Like everything we do as Christians, we have a purpose in it to glorify God. And so if we're just blowing our money all the time and just not paying attention to where it goes, it's basically like having mental illness and just doing nothing about it, like not going to any therapy, or you know what I mean? Or like having any illness, any illness and just not getting help.
Well, you're bringing up something that's important that I want to touch on, and I do touch on in the book is, listen, not everybody who may be listening to this, may be a follower of Christ. Good money management applies to everybody. Depending on what your spiritual beliefs are, some people don't believe in anything. Some people have, God gives us the right to choose, but I think these principles can apply to most everybody because it's a noble thing to handle your money properly, to be a good steward of it, no matter what. But for the Christian, what happens after we leave here in our belief system is there's tremendous rewards for being faithful while we're here. So every good thing that we do handling our money here on earth, affects our bank here, but it also affects our heavenly bank.
The
bank above.
One of the chapters.
And exactly. And that's important for us. And again, that's no disrespect to those who are not believers. But I think that, they can get some good information, and, many people who aren't believers are good money managers. But here's the thing is in the Christian worldview, what we do with our money here is often a struggle. But when we leave here, we don't need to worry about money no more. It's there's no currency in heaven, but we don't need it because he's got everything. And so Hebrews 11:6 is it's impossible to please God without faith. Yeah. So when we are obedient here, God gets the double dip. We're serving him here. We're serving him. We're serving our neighbor. We're following the commandments. Yeah. And when we get there, we get rewards for our faithfulness here. It's a double dip. On the other hand, if we're lousy with dealing with it here, there's not going to be rewards to the point where sometimes, if you are not handling your money well, there may be a faith issue there that needs to be examined.
Yes. Yeah. You are not kidding. Yeah. But you say that so well in the book. Have you guys ever seen The Legend of Bagger Vance?
Been a while.
I have. Yeah.
I just watched it.
Goodness.
It's a great movie. I'm a little late to the game.
Yeah. Hey, you're here though. It's not about when, it's if.
Yes. Yeah, I watched it and it was good. But I was thinking, because so if you haven't seen Legend of Bagger Vance, this guy who used to be he's obviously gifted as a great golfer, but then he gets, goes off to the war and is just jaded from it, and he feels like he lost his swing. And then when he's everybody who knew that he was a great golfer wants him to be in this golf tournament against these two great golfers, and he doesn't feel he can do it. When out of nowhere comes Will Smith, Bagger Vance, okay? And he ends up being his caddy for 18 holes. my dogs. Oh my God, his caddy
I
for
love
18
it.
holes.
So,
And for those 18 holes, he is horribly falling on his face at first. And then he gets a little better. And I mean, this Bagger Vance is his guide. Okay. So it's very much like, if you're a Christian, you could see it as God guiding you through your purpose. Okay. But then when so it's been out for 23 years. So if you don't know the ending, I'm about to give it away, but it has been out for 23 years. So
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yes, so when he becomes the great golfer again by hole 18, okay? And Bagger Vance leaves and he's a great golfer. But I was like, if you're not a Christian, what's the point of winning? You know, like if you're not doing something for the purpose of glorifying God and being the light in the world, who cares if you win? You know, like who cares if you win the game? Does that make any sense? Like he won the game and he had the guide, but it was all for just winning. What is that? You know, like if you're a Christian, God's with you. He has a purpose for you that he prepared from before the beginning of time, that he knew that Ray Newmans and Wade Carey were going to live in 2023 and they were going to do this thing. And he's walking with you in it, you know? And it's so amazing. And then when you win, it's for the glory of God.
Well,
for
that's
God, and for Gideon, you know? But if you're not a Christian, you just won, and that's it. There's nothing else.
Once you get to a certain point of your faith, and I'll shut up and let Ray talk here. Just once you get to a certain point of your faith, to me, without Jesus Christ, this existence is useless. I mean, it's going to end one day. I don't know how it's going to end. I don't want to know how. If I could find out, if there's not something beyond this, this is a tragic existence, because the older you get, the more you realize how much evil is in this world and how much your heart longs to live away from the evil. When you're younger, the evil that you see slides off you like water off a duck's back. But as you get older, it hurts more and more. You know, when you see pedophile rings being busted up and dogs being euthanized and all these terrible things, I'm telling you, after a while, that stuff, I'm getting soft. That stuff makes me cry. I mean, it just breaks my heart. And I long to live in the world that's perfection. So while I'm here, I'm going to be faithful as I can with my money, because again, that is the, you know, the telescope right into the middle of our soul with where we are in our faith. Go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we did a movie reference, so I wanted to do my own.
Okay.
So a lot of people seen The Matrix, right?
Yes.
Have you seen The Matrix? Well, you have Neo and you have Morpheus. Well, everyone wants to be Neo because he's the one. Why not be Morpheus and be the guide?
Oh, that's interesting.
And be the one that shows the way to everyone. Because we already know who Neo is in the story. It's Jesus. Okay. Yeah. And we get to be Morpheus to the people around us. And it's not a pill that we get to offer them. It's a practice of their own self forgiveness through the blood and breaking of the body of Jesus Christ. So what we want to do here, and I think this is what you're doing with your books and what Wade has done with his books, and what we want to do with all this stuff, is that we want to be Morpheus. We're not Neo. We're not the one. We're not the chosen. We are the guide that helps people get to the right path. And if that be in budgeting, come on, okay? Step up next to us and let's go. It's not going to be easy, but it can be done. If it's about your salvation, come on, step over here. Bring your questions. Bring your all the things that you want to believe that makes the Bible and Christ not true. Bring it to the table, because here's what we're asking you to do with your budget: is bring all your lies to the table and show it to us.
Yes.
because your budget's got more lies in it than what you do on a daily basis. So what we're asking is to bring your lies to the table, set them down, account for them, repent of them, and then act accordingly, because there is at least 50% of the people listening to this. If they did a budget, they would realize they're not broke.
Yeah.
They just have bad habits.
Right.
They just have bad habits.
Yeah. It's just money flying out the window.
And then if someone sat down at the table and truly put what they thought their sin was that could never allow them into heaven, we can show them that that sin is nothing compared to what is before us, after us, and what created us. So this is a simple step down process where we just want to guide people in a good direction without a bunch of religious processing in it. It's about Christ, it's about being obedient, and it's about using your heart, using what God gave you, that feeling of love. Let it pour over into other people and allow that to work in their lives. Yeah. And when you listen to that, if you read that, that's why there's hearts on it.
Yes.
Okay, this book goes to the heart. And the heart is where you will be deceived the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
If wisdom is not present to protect you.
Yeah.
I want to use an example that just, as Ray, as you're talking, it just jumped up all over me. When you are accounting for your money properly, you build in some protections against being selfish and being foolish. For example, once you have an accounting system and you're just a simple accounting system, debits and credits, you're accounting for it. You're sharing the information with your spouse if you have one. And if you're not, you still need to budget because you may have a spouse one day. And you want to be good at practice at it because it's going to help protect your marriage against, the fiery darts of the enemy. But if I get a bonus or it was back 4 years ago from when we settled my mom's estate, there's some old oil and mineral stuff. And, there was several $1,000s cash out that I opted for. And here's how it works. When you're running the budget properly, let's say you get $1,000 bonus. Okay. Mm-hmm. You stick it into the budget. You stick it here. We're going to have a little fun here. We're going to give to charities here. We're going to fund these things because we need some car repairs, whatever it is. That $1,000, if it's handled properly, it goes into the budgeting funnel and it disappears into that budget quickly. And here's why that's good. Because you don't have time to want to get all lovey hug up on that $1,000 bonus. Man, I love me that money. Woo!
Yeah.
That's what we want to do with it. And it scales up. If it's 5,000, 10,000, once if someone dropped $1 million on me, I would have it spent in about 2 minutes into the budget. It's going to go here. It's going to go here. Pay this. Oh, buy that. Oh, yeah. It's not going to stick around long enough for me to develop an emotional relationship with it because it's just a commodity.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is unbelievably important. It just relieves this burden. And because when you are trying to dance with your money and love up on it, you are dancing with a liar. That liar is not going to give you comfort. And I'm just telling you, when you get to the point where you're doing this, you'll be prevented from allowing money to be an idol ever again. And I'm telling you, do this for your happiness. Do this for joy. It starts there, but it turns into obedience to your heavenly Father. But do it for you to start if that's what you need to do. Yeah. Because you are going to relieve pain. There's an old expression that an old mentor in the trucking business taught me years ago. It's a good old boy from Kentucky, and he said, Wade, people gravitate towards pleasure and away from pain. Yeah, that's what a good budget will do for you, because you will not be able to treat money like an idol if you're handling it properly. You're going to be grateful. Thank you, Lord, you gave me $1,000 bonus. Thank you, Lord. Oh, that's $10,000 bonus. Oh, thank you, Lord, I won the lottery. I got $2 million coming in.
Yeah,
but it's going to disappear into that budget really quickly. And you're going to handle it right. You're going to spend some, you're going to save some, you're going to give some away. And the more you build up a portfolio, the more you should want to give away. I mean, who needs golden toilets? Nobody needs this.
No.
Nobody needs this stuff, but people are starving.
Golden egg.
More to help. You're going to feel so much better about what you're doing for this world when you handle your money properly. But you got to take care of your own business in your own house first and foremost. Get good at it, and then you're going to get good at everything else.
Yes, that's so good. Preach. We got Nick Goss. Nick Goss says, "Hey, Jerry, looking forward to this conversation, which has been going for an hour, but we're glad that you joined us."
You can backtrack, Nick, and check us out and reach out to us, and we're glad to have a conversation and help if we can.
Yeah, Nick is awesome. He just wrote a great book that I'm about to.
I seen that interview.
Yes.
What's going on, Nick? so that was a good interview. That you're doing some good stuff for these authors out there.
So. Oh, with Nick, yeah, he's got a book coming out about AI, and it's gonna be great. I'm so excited. Hey, Ray.
That is interesting. There's a lot of that AI stuff coming up, and I'm thinking as we go down the road, how Satan's going to use that.
Yes.
Because if we shut off, let's say everybody here gets good at budgeting and all of a sudden everybody's treating their money right. Well, guess what? The enemy's going to find some other way to attack us. So when we rest in peace, we rest in peace when we're in Jesus. We don't rest in peace if we're not in Jesus. But if we rest in peace with Jesus, while we're here, we're behind enemy lines and we're going to be dealing with the fiery darts from the enemy, period. It's just, that's what this life is. And that's where we've gotten lazy in this world, is people have forgotten that we're born into a spiritual war. And I think that as the headlines continue to roll, we're going to find out about enormous amounts of greed with money, among other sins. But just as we're talking about money, we're going to find out about so much greed with money across this globe. And I think God is providing an opportunity for people to learn. And it is my passionate hope that Climbing the Mountain will be a part of helping restore people, because the wisdom in this is not from me. It's not from Ray. This comes from, the Heavenly Father who, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I am obedient. When he tells me to do something, I do it. And I've learned that if I don't do it, he's going to whack me. So, all right, Wade, how do you feel about debt payments being worked into the budget so it would be avoided at all costs, or just part of the life? Well, Ray, that might be a good question for you. Debt payments.
Well, so the way I approach any debt is based off its interest rate. So, and this is going outside of this book, but we'll give you a little teaser of what some of the stuff that to come will be, is that you always attack your highest interest rates first. Okay. So if you've got, some high interest rates, consumer debt, non-funded stuff where it's just not a car, it's a credit card or something like that, you go after it. So when you make and I think a lot of people get confused about what necessarily the budget is. The budget's not only what your monthly expenses, but it has to account for your yearly subscriptions, the car's going to need tires, an estimated gas, you need to make funds. So there's a big, vast place there where we can get into the nitty gritty with the acts of budgeting. But it starts with a piece of paper, an in and out column, and then you just keep adding to the out column until you're about to throw up, and then you take a break and you continue adding, because there's always going to be more out than there is in at first, because you haven't been taking care of it. I don't disagree with debt necessarily. I think there's debt that's a lot more promising than other debt, but I would say you shouldn't give any of your money to anyone if you've got consumer debt. If you have a credit card with 28% interest, every free penny that you have better be going to that debt. If you've got a house with a decent interest rate, then that's things that we have to do to live in this society if you're not a high income earner. But the higher the income comes, the snowball is very good. I love the snowball. I think, I use the snowball to this day. So when I add new debt into my debt portfolio, it goes into the snowball. So it's time to get a new truck. Well, that new truck, the old truck gets pulled out, the new truck gets put in, and you should have already been kind of been accounting for that new truck. And so if you've got a strict budget, you can sit in a place where you don't make emotional financial decisions. And that's what gets people in trouble is emotions. New car smell kills everybody. It makes paychecks fly
Yeah.
away. So
you know, these are good, you know, points to get into, but you know, I would back up and just say, before we get into the minutia of the details on that, I want you to, Nick and everybody else, I want you to think about debt as literally being cancer in your life. And you have to get it out of your life as quickly as you can. And, you know, for example, you know, there's a lot of techniques, and I'll be glad to share again, you know, I can offer opinion, Ray can offer his opinion, but a year and 4 months ago, I exited a program where I had a fully paid company car. So went and purchased a vehicle, actually swapped vehicles with my wife. And so I started accruing money. So when I take a business trip, I pay for my gas and I take the rest and I stick it in a fund. It's an accrual. Now Ramsey would call these like envelopes. I think it's just it's same as effective in a line in a spreadsheet. And that's how I saved for doing books, and I share that in climbing the mountain, Angela. But the point is accruals are important. And that's why I say when the money comes in, I stick money here, I stick it there, and then I don't touch it. If I had to buy groceries, I'd dig into it. But now I've got, you know, $4,000 saved up in depreciation on the vehicle, so that ultimately the goal is I like a new car. I'm not the one who's going to go get the used car, but I acknowledge that that's not necessarily the right thing, but I like it. So I want to be able to, here's my trade, here's its value, here's some cash, give me the new vehicle. And then you start accruing money every single month. You don't stop accruing money because it's a depreciating asset, a car is, but you got to have it. So that's the biggest thing. And why I've got an 8, 9, 10 page budget is because I've got all these accruals and I've got all the transactions. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to depart from conventional thinking. I love credit cards. I pay them off at the end of the month and I get me the points.
Yeah, properly used credit cards.
Huh?
Yeah.
Properly used credit cards are very good.
And I've heard some of the finance guys just going nuts. Oh, no, you can't game them. I've been gaming them since I went bankrupt in 1996. And I built my credit back up. I've got an 820 credit score now. And I game them because they game us. They are banking on the fact that X number percentage of people are going to go in and they're going to go back. They know, these credit card companies know exactly what they're doing. And so it's you're either going to game them or they're going to game you. Well, I game them and I get lots of Delta points. I get lots of Marriott points, and I don't care what anybody thinks. I think
and I'm going to say this is that this is for the seasoned budgeter. Okay.
Yeah, it's for this. You're right. You're right.
If you don't know your line items, I would say, you know, you better be careful with a credit card because it can get out from underneath you pretty quick.
Yeah, if you're not a good budgeter, you don't want credit cards.
So, you know, the big picture for me on this and the way this always goes is that I am not going to do anything that I can't afford. And I don't know if I can afford it until I ran it through my budget to see how it works. Yeah. So we have to start now with a budget.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, the thing of it is that the budget conscious people, you know, the credit agencies and all that stuff has figured this out. And they found a way with the 0 APR, but still charging you an interest. And it really takes down who we want to talk to and who we really want to grab into is someone who is just completely scared to death of putting their budget on a piece of paper and helping them get the courage to put that on a piece of paper. And then we could possibly see places where we could reduce spending. We might see places where we're going to have to increase spending, but then we'll know. You know what's the fastest way to get a 25-year-old guy off the couch? Show him his budget.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
hopefully, if he's not a little less.
90% of the people that don't work as hard as they're supposed to work, or probably don't pursue and live out a Christian life in their work life, is, that well is 100% because they don't know their budget. They're broke, living paycheck to paycheck, but things are not really bad for them yet. And you get beat up over the next the next Ram 1500 that comes out, and you think you can afford it when you can't. So it's baby steps, and if your heart is still wrapped up into a whole bunch of other things besides glorifying God with your paycheck, it's going to be really hard to live in this world without some chaos.
There's a couple of comments I want to address. Number one, one is, I'm a horrible budgeter. Well, good news, Nick. Budgeting is a learned talent, and it's flipping a switch. And once you do, you're going to get into it, and it's going to be wonderful. Then the other is, I love budgeting. It's weirdly fun. I mean, that's the truth. I can't wait till the 29th or 30th or whatever at the end of every month when I get my last paycheck. I've got my credit cards dropping and doing all that stuff. I can't wait to get done to move everything into the next month and complete all the transactions, because it has this task is done. I'm checking that box. It feels good. And like I said, my mental limit has always been, all right, here's this budget. I mean, I've got them. Listen, I got them here. I do them every single month, every transaction, all of my accruals. I can't wait to get it done. From someone who, and literally, I got out of high school, my first checking account, I bounced my first check. And now I'm sitting here, trying to help others understand it. Again, these are learned talents.
That's awesome.
And the better you get at it, you get kind of geeky about it. And, it's an amazing thing when you can flip off the pain and it feels good to be obedient. It feels good to be productive. It feels terrible when you are constantly running away from the specter of this. Oh my gosh, here comes all the. Listen, I don't care what they say in these finance classes. I would rather have a credit card and buy groceries if I'm starving. Then I'd rather buy groceries and pay it back later on a credit card than not have groceries.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't care what they say, whatever. It is a temptation. But again, some of the things Ray's point was, it's for a seasoned budgeter. I agree. You got to start out with the basics. But ultimately, when you flip it from a deficit in your life to where you're a good budgeter and you're a faithful budgeter, then you can start to experience and actually, growing a credit score. Because it does help in this world. For example, 3 years ago, we purchased a vehicle. Ford Credit was offering 0 APR for 84 months. 0 APR. I don't care what anybody says. Somebody wants to give you their money for 7 years. That'll give you a lower payment. I don't think that's a bad thing. I can't think it's a bad thing. But people who are just in the remedial stage and just getting started, maybe that would be a bad thing. But later on, you learn to master the fiery darts coming from Satan, and you turn them around on the enemy, and that feels really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ray, go ahead.
Jonathan, by the way, so the Goslings is Jonathan Goss, and him and Nick are brothers.
Yeah, I made the connection.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew, but it's awesome. But Nick, he actually is a fan of Dave Ramsey, and on his show, he's talked about this before. And if I mess this up, just correct me, Nick. But so Dave Ramsey says, well, first of all, they are an amazing homeschool family. Okay, they are like amazing. They make everybody want to homeschool their kids. But Dave Ramsey says that basically, if you're not rich, like, send your kids to public school. And Nick's like, it's not going to happen. and so, somewhat a fan, but not hardcore. But what do you guys have to say about that? About like your values?
Listen,
that you feel like.
I graduated from the Dave Ramsey stuff back in 2005. I don't put a lot of weight into a lot of the things. I mean, he's running a business over there.
Yeah.
That is asking people to purchase stuff from him that are not supposed to be able to afford it. So, there's always chinks in the armor here. Dave Ramsey made most of his money in real estate. He's a great financial advisor, has a great show, has a great couple of books. And I say, after you get the budget right, you go through Wade's stuff, take the free course that we're going to offer in September, you're going to be better prepared to step into a Ramsey plan and be successful. But the fact of sell everything, that the kids get worried. I mean, that's a favorite one that he likes to say, is that you're not supposed to have stuff laying around your house. We can get.
That's a good point, Nick.
We can get pretty legalistic when it comes to this extremely quickly. It becomes the have and the have-nots. And it turns into every other culture war in the world. What we're asking people to do is honestly sit down and figure out where all your money's going, because the Bible has called us to be charitable. And that's not only with our money, that's with our time and our talents. So if you're underwater with your cash, then you don't have time to share your talent.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're making, if you're not in a deficit, you're in a 30 or 40% positive and you have money left over, well, then it's probably your turn to be the money, to be the giver in that, so the biblical principle is, just like everything else, is that we do this stuff with our heart submitted to Jesus first, and then we participate in the world the best we can. I seen it, and so we participate in the world the best we can with a Christian principle. I would say that if Dave Ramsey came and sat down and looked at my budget, he would say, well, your cars are too expensive.
Sure.
Something. I was like, well, yeah, okay. Well, I'm 48 years old and I don't have a lot of other things. I'm going to have a little bit more, but the light bill's on auto pay, the truck bills are on auto pay. We're in a different place. But do I still run into trouble with money? Yes. We still wake up sometimes and some things has gotten crazy, and then we need to get back into that budget. It all starts at A.
Sure.
It doesn't start at Z.
Yeah.
We can't, and we're talking to people who are at A. We're talking to the people at A.
You guys are the AA.
Yeah, we are the AA for budgeting.
So, you guys are the 12-step program,
I want to address a couple things on the comments, just going back to this, talking about budgeting. It's weirdly fun. Here's key. Order from chaos. Slay those dragons.
Slay them.
Yeah.
Two important things.
Good.
Finding order from chaos will give you the peace.
Yeah.
And slaying those dragons means the dragon is the dragon that was cast off of God's holy mountain. That's the devil. You are absolutely slaying the dragons. But the other is, how do you budget eating out? A lot of different ways to do it. You can set up a certain amount each month. I name every penny, but I allow what I call a general fund, usually about $30 a day. And if we don't spend it on this side or the other, or buying a candle or whatever, what we do is if my eating out dinner fund is zero, which it is right now, then that $30 a day, well, if we just sit at the house and don't spend any money for 3 days, okay, well, now we got $90, so we can go out to a fairly nice dinner for that. So it depends on how you do your budget and all that, but ultimately it's always good budgeting. Once you do the debits and credits, it's always about the accruals. You stick money here, you stick it there, and the whole thing that we've already talked about. So you're going to have to, nothing worth anything is going to be achieved if you're not willing to sacrifice for it. That's what agape love is. It's sacrificial love. It's love in action. So if you want to eat out, you're going to have to sacrifice something else, build it up. If you got $50 built up in a dinner fund, then, you're probably going to, maybe a burger place, because it's expensive. It's hard to go to a sit down dinner for $50 these days. But if you want more, then you start. And that's what my wife always laughs about, is like, well, we want to go to such and such, and that's going to be an expensive dinner. Okay, start a fund, put $5 in it and just keep adding to it. Old school. Yeah. Look, I had my third book, A Walk Through Heaven and Hell, and I shared this in the book. It was going to cost me, back then, it cost a lot because I was going through a Christian publisher, $2,400. And I started with the first $10 into a line item. And guess what happened? I just kept taking every little extra and throwing it in there. And when you're faithful like that, God gets involved. Yeah. When you are not accounting for it, he's like, you're not being obedient. Come on now. So, but to answer that question is, you're going to have to give up something else. Save up the money, and then you go out. It's, have the cash. Don't work from a deficit. Sometimes I'll do that. I've had a lot of vet bills here lately. The dog got to get shot, and all that's $300 from the vet. Well, I'll stick that in a payback fund and have to accrue for it. But there's a lot of the things you could do, emergency funds and all those things are good. But ultimately, knowing where your money is and where it's going out, that's important.
Yes, run everything through the system, right? Hey, Sean Moss, by the way.
Yeah, Sean had a good question there.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's the reason why we're talking about budgeting, because money's not going to be fair ever. Yeah. Okay, it's fair for certain people, and it's not fair for other people. And I know this is probably not the answer you were thinking you were going to get, but yes, things are more expensive. And no, you can't sell them for the same amount. That's the reason why we're going to have to be extremely careful with how we spend our money and what we spend our money on. And, I will be speaking boldly to say that we have a Christian audience right now, is that there will be a time where, because of your affiliation with Christ, things might not be as cheap. That's the reason why we're saying now is that you better have, if I come into your house and I shut your internet and your lights off, I better be able to get a candle and you bring the budget to the table. Because if not, you're not budgeting. You're not budgeting. Okay. So there's difficulties coming that we're not going to be able to overcome. And we're going to be persecuted. And I think financially will be one of them, because we kind of already are, but that's the whole world in itself is doing this. It's, you have to only deal and you got to stay in your lane, and you got to worry about what you have and what your responsibilities are, and allow God to do God things and let Jesus to do Jesus things. Because if we get too far into culture, then we're going to default on our family and our faith. So just understand that there's going to be, no matter how good you do this, there's going to be places where it doesn't work right. But that doesn't mean it's not working in the biggest picture of it, because when I get done with this body and I'm gone, all I want people to know is say that he worked till the day he died, and every penny he had accounted for, and he did the best he could with it. And that there's people been fed with that money. There's Bibles being bought. There's bills been paid. And the economy, I work on God's economy, which has a little different sling than today's economy. Even though we're being affected by this economy, we don't have to be a part of it if we are giving that budget at the end of the month before we start new and say, Lord, all the things that are coming that everyone doesn't know. And I just need you to help me through this and help me be faithful through it. And man, that's all we can do. We can join hands together as Christians, help each other out as best as we can, and do what's right for the people around us, and for our family. So very good question. And I know it was a car topic, but the economy is a bigger topic. So
I'd like to add something to that. Is that these factors are going to move around quite a bit. Last year, when all of a sudden it was like, okay, we agree, Wade, turn in your company car because you don't use it that much. I actually wanted to do that, and so they said, okay, turn it in, and all of a sudden there's no inventory. So I went and found a decent sedan. And now my wife is driving it, and I started driving the pickup truck, and I'm not driving it as much, and it's depreciating less. So my point is, these factors in the economy are going to be changing all of the time. Right now, you can't hardly go buy like a Ford vehicle because there's nothing less than $32,000, on the lot. But it's true of most things. You know, Jeeps that used to sell for $24,000 are now $35,000. So you're going to have to make your decisions based on these factors that are constantly changing, with the hopes that we're in a famine right now in the economy with inflation, but we came out of a feast, and I think we're heading towards another feast, but I don't know. So your decisions are always going to be revolving around what you have, you know, what is going on, and then unexpected things. Because Ray touched this at the very beginning, miracles can happen, but I think miracles are not likely to happen if you're not being faithful.
Sure.
You want to live a guilt-free life? Everyone always has to deal with guilt.
Yeah.
You want to live a guilt-free life? Grab a piece of paper and write down all your will nots. Because I'm a Christian, because I'm this, write down all your will nots, and that's what you wake up every morning. I will not do these. And then you pull out another piece of paper and you write down your budget, and you say, I will not deviate from this, because I know times there's been 7 years of famine and 3 years of, you know, that there is a reason why God manipulates the money. And I do believe that everything that is happening right now is happening out of the desire and out of the willingness of the Father. He's allowing us to be in this point in time for a reason, to prove to us that he's enough. And I'm very, very adamant to say, I will be broken homeless and still singing his praise. Okay. You can take everything from me, but you can't take him from me. And I believe that's a big reason why we'll still be here doing this same thing as long as God wants us to do it. And it's not really in our control, but we do have control and responsibility over certain things, and we need to be very, very strict with them.
I do want to say one more thing is in you know, as it relates to our faith, you know, like I just shared last year, you know, I had been driving around a nice sedan company car for a decade, and it was a real blessing, but it was obvious I just, you know, I'm not traveling that much anymore. So, you know, then had to, you know, try to find a vehicle and all that. And then, so this past week, I went and called on a client down in South Georgia, and, you know, I'm driving a 4-year-old pickup truck, and still got fairly low mileage. And I'm telling you, because of all the ups and downs I've had with dealing with money, I'm looking at the hood as I'm driving, and I'm up off the ground a little bit from a sedan. And I'm just like, Lord, just thank you. My heart was exploding with gratitude over just being able to drive a vehicle that drives. Just when we go through these struggles with money, I'm telling you, it changes our heart so that we find gratitude. And I'm telling you, gratitude is the magic sauce in life. And if you don't have a grateful heart, then it's time to check your faith, because people who are faithful are humble, meek in spirit, and we're grateful for what we have versus angry about what we don't have.
For sure. Yeah. I'm not humble at all, but
we'll get you there.
I paid off my car. Okay.
Ooh,
this month.
I love it.
I love it. So good.
Congratulations.
It's 7 years old. So I've been paying on it that long, but just that it still goes, it still looks nice, you know, I have leather seats. Yeah. It's such a good feeling, you know, that it's like,
well, you know, that Dave Ramsey say now today is the first day that you own the car.
Right. It's never been yours before. Right.
Yeah. You finally own it. It's finally yours. You got a brand new car. No matter how old it is, it's a brand new car, and it's yours. Congratulations.
Right. Covered with snacks, kids' snacks, and vomit and all that fun stuff from raising kids. Right under the 72 months.
2 months.
Yes, I know, because we're idiots. That's why I read this book. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So we are at an hour and a half, and this went completely off of my plan, to the glory of God. Okay, because I figured you have on page 164 to 167, you have 21 points of your chapters, you know, that you can kind of go through as a checklist. And I thought those would just, if we did 3 shows of this and went through 7 points each show. But so all that means is that we'll just have to do 3 more shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're game.
This is part 1, and then we'll have part 2, 3, and 4. But then they're also going to do a workshop that is not going to be
a workshop,
but it's going to be a monthly budgeting workshop that's free that we can all go to on a Zoom call.
Free budgeting workshop. Yes.
So good. I'm definitely going.
Yeah. Well, I will have to say this is that the conversation that me and Wade had, you and a few of your friends need to show up.
Yes.
I mean, if so and we're going to do a little bit of advertising on this. I might put some Facebook stuff to it and all that, but when we really get down to the nitty gritty of this is that the same class that a church allowed to be done in their sanctuary is the class that is the class that we're going to be giving on a Zoom for free.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Well, yeah, because in the chapter before Alley-oop 16, okay, Wade, you say you kind of talk about like a checklist, and I was like really hoping it was like an actual checklist that I could just go through and like kind of see what my strengths and weaknesses were like as a checklist. But it was great the way that you did it, and so the workshop and just anything extra, it's like kind of the checklist. I love checklists.
Yeah. Well, so let's keep working on your heart, and let's get some things moving. We really appreciate the time. We're going to continue. This is meant to be just a conversation starter, not the know all that ends all. And peace be with you after that. No, this is ongoing conversations, and we love talking about it because we're a couple of geeks, Ray and I, and now you're becoming part of our geek cult. So welcome.
No, you said geek before, and it made me think of this one part that I literally laughed out loud in the when I read in the book about when you and Alyssa were out at the outlet store, and you guys had been budgeting so well, and then you finally decide to like let loose at Clark's shoe store.
At Clark's. I looked at her and I just said, "Let's go buy some shoes." And she's like,
"At Clark's."
Really? She was really cool about it too. She was like, "Did I just hear that right?" And I don't know what it was. It was just like, "All right, time to turn the accountant off, shut him up for." And we went. I still have those shoes sitting right over here in the closet. I still have those.
I love it. It just made me think of like you going into a bar and saying like, "Give me a milk, make it chocolate."
Make it chocolate. Oh my goodness.
All right, well, let's continue the conversation, folks.
Yeah,
I got to go mow the grass, so there we go.
Oh, now you're gonna mow the grass now?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Well, it's cooler. Awesome, it's cooler out now. I hate August. I hate the summer. So there's that.
Worse.
Well, now he can mow his grass in like 18 seconds too.
Yeah, it's not big.
So. Got it. Well, thanks so much, Jonathan and Nick and Sean for joining us.
Thank you.
Go ride your motorcycle before it gets dark.
So awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much again. And until next
time. See you next time.
See you next time.